Hey everyone, it's Lindsay and I'm here today to share with you a few tips and tricks on adhering vellum. So I wanted to use this Wings of Love stamp set. This is a digital stamp set from Craft and Desert Divas, but I wanted to use this little flower in the stamp set to create a nice pattern paper. So I started with the 6x6 blank project in Photoshop Elements, and I just kept duplicating this stamp, twisting it and turning it until I had this great pattern paper. I printed it off with my laser printer, and now I'm going to use my alcohol markers to quickly color in all of these images exactly the same, and that's going to give me a nice pattern paper that I've created myself. I like to do my pattern papers this way instead of having a lot of pattern paper packs. It works better for me because I don't have a lot of storage space. So I can store all of my digital stamps on my computer or an external hard drive like I do, and then whenever I want to, I can make my own pattern paper and just print it off and color it in myself, and then it will match any project that I want it to match this way too. Now this card took a lot of twists and turns. So after I had this colored in, I thought I wanted to do a shaker card. I had the love sentiment in this set already printed out. I colored it up with some ombre letters, and you'll see here later on that it didn't all work out that way. So I'll show you how this card came to be. There you can see that ombre love that I've went ahead and colored in. I cut that out with a scallop, or with a just stitched rectangle die from the Fancy Frame die set. And now I'm going to use the larger scallop die with the stitching to cut out the pattern paper. Now I wanted to make sure my roses were peeking out on all sides of this, so that's why I'm using it as a placeholder here, just so I could make sure I had my die in the right place. I'll go ahead and secure this die down with some painter's tape and run it through my die cut machine off camera. And then I can pull this off, and once I had that placed down perfectly in the right spot, I can save all that extra, put it off to the side, save it for another project. But now I have this die cut pattern paper here, but I went ahead and placed it to where I had little flowers poking out all around it. I didn't like the way it looked though. I didn't feel like the way I colored the love matched the way I colored the flowers, so I went a whole new direction. I wanted to stamp a sentiment on vellum, so I didn't cover up all those flowers that I colored in. But I needed a way to secure it down in the middle of a card base, so I had to play around with a few things. So the first thing I needed to do was get my sentiment stamped onto the vellum. Now I used the smaller scallop rectangle in that Fancy Frame die set, and I'm going to use the Wishful Thoughts stamp set, and I've built up a sentiment that says, "Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." I'm going to stamp that directly down onto the vellum, and I've used just some black dye ink to stamp that down. Now make sure you use your heat tool to heat set that. I didn't, and I got a little smearing. You'll see how I fixed that in the end though. Now I needed to put adhesive behind this panel. So what I did was I took that same small scalloped rectangle die, and I took the green cardstock that you can see I used for my card base, and I cut two corners. These are going to be like little photo corners here, and I'm going to use those to cover up adhesive on two sides of the vellum. Now that's going to give me a nice grounding for that panel. However, I'm also going to secure down the other two sides very, very lightly, and I'll show you how I did that as well. But there you can see, once I've got those exactly the same size, I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of them and just overlay them on top of two corners on opposite sides. So I'll do one in the top right hand corner and then one in the bottom left. And this gives me a nice small surface to put some very strong adhesive behind, so I know this panel is not going to go anywhere. You can see I did a little smearing with my dye ink. I didn't use my heat tool to heat set it. I knew I should have, but I was wasting time, or I felt like I had spent a lot of time in redirecting this card, so I was in a hurry. But what I did was I took my Dove blender pen and I just keep wiping it over that dye ink and then wiping it off on my hand. You can see out of frame there. But that took away the majority of it. Then I'll use my heat tool to dry that, and you won't even know it was there. It's a little visible now because it's still wet, but once it's down on the panel, you won't be able to see it. Now I used some fun foam and double-sided adhesive to adhere that larger scalloped rectangle right over that A2 top folding green card base. Now on the back of this vellum, I'm going to go ahead and put some really strong double-sided adhesive on those two corners that have the green cardstock. And that green cardstock will cover up my adhesive. I'll go ahead and place this right down in the center of that panel, and you can see those roses that I've colored in through the sentiment panel, which is exactly what I was going for. Now the other two little corners were flying away a little bit, so I brought out my multimedia mat and a little paintbrush, and I am just dabbing it in the corners ever just a little teeny tiny bit, and then I'll just hold it in place for a few seconds, and this allows it to stay in place, hold those corners in place so they're not poking up, but the adhesive doesn't show through because I used such a small amount. Now to finish this card off, I wanted to add a little few embellishments. I tried some sequins and they weren't really going with the feel of the card, so I brought out my enamel accents in black tie, and I'm just going to put just a few little squirts here and there all around this sentiment to finish off this card. But there you can see in the close-up, I've got a great sentiment panel, a vellum sentiment panel, in the center of my card with no adhesive showing. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and as always, I will leave you with this close-up and a few pictures of the finished card. For more information and the supply list on this card, you can head to my blog. I will leave that link in the description box below. Thanks for watching today, and happy crafting.